From VOA Learning English, this is the Education Report in Special English. In late December, funerals took place for the shooting victims in Newtown, Connecticut, where 20-year-old Adam Lanza killed 20 children, 6 educators, and himself. Officials say Adam Lanza used guns owned by his mother, who he also killed during the shooting. The incident was the second deadliest shooting at an American school. In 2007, a student at Virginia Tech University killed 32 people and then himself. What happened in Newtown has reopened debate about gun control and issues like mental health services. President Obama spoke at a memorial service in the town. He said he will use whatever power he has to prevent more tragedies like the one at Sandy Hook. He named Vice President Joe Biden to lead a team to develop proposals to reduce gun violence. But days earlier, another community not far away regained a school in a story of hope and renewal. Flooding from Hurricane Sandy nearly destroyed St. Camillus School in the Rockaway area of Queens in New York City. The Catholic school stands just a short distance from the Atlantic Ocean. For 6 weeks, more than 200 students and teachers went to another school while St. Camillus was being repaired. But the reopening of the school on December 10th was a victory for the community. School Secretary Carrie Montero says the message from Hurricane Sandy is clearest in many recent acts of kindness. She said people from Connecticut, California, and Brooklyn, New York all offered help. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laura.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. There are schools of fish and there are schools for fishermen. The Cod Academy is a year-long program in Maine, one of the New England states in the American Northeast. The academy is new. The idea is to train current or former ocean-going fishermen to become fish farmers. Sebastian Bell is director of the Maine Aquaculture Association. That group launched the Cod Academy with the University of Maine and other partners. Mr. Bell says the academy teaches all about managing a floating farm. One of the things we've been teaching the students is how to feed the fish and not overfeed the fish, he says. You want to give them enough feed and not waste any. The students practice at 8 fish pens about 1.5 kilometers from shore. These circular pens are 50 meters wide and covered with netting to keep out seabirds. Each one holds as many as 50,000 cod. A partner in the academy, Great Bay Aquaculture of New Hampshire, operates this fish farm. Most of the cod will become someone's meal somewhere in the world. Bill Thompson is 59 years old. He served in the Navy and worked as a commercial fisherman. He says the Cod Academy made him a believer in fish farming. Even if the wild stocks came back to their fullest capacity, they still wouldn't be able to feed the world. So I think this is the way of the future. He and his son were among the first 4 students who graduated in August. Like any business, fish farming has financial risks. Program Director Sebastian Bell says students have to develop a marketing and business plan before they can graduate. Graduates can receive financial assistance from the Maine Aquaculture Association to start their own cod farm. But they will be expected to raise about half the money toward any project. Mr. Bell says the Cod Academy is based on programs to retrain displaced herring and tuna fishermen in Norway and Japan. These government-sponsored programs started more than 30 years ago. He says, "It's never been done before in America, and we're trying to see if it's a model that has some potential." Maine had just 1 commercial cod farm when the students graduated last month, but Mr. Bell hopes things will change. It's a native fish to Maine. The growing conditions in Maine are very good for cod, and it's kind of a natural choice for us as a state. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Education Report. Today, we hear expert suggestions for academic writing. Jennifer Ahern Dodson is an assistant professor of the Practice in Writing Studies at Duke University in North Carolina. Ms. Ahern Dodson likes to start a discussion with both students and professors planning to write a paper or essay. She asks about their earlier writing experiences. Were they negative or positive? She says you are not alone if you have had problems with your writing. Everyone struggles with writing. Writing is hard. It's hard for all writers at some point, she says. And at some point, you are going to hit a roadblock, she adds. She advises to think about earlier experiences. When the writing is going well, what was happening? When the writing was not going well, what was happening? She says most people's negative writing experiences happened because a very specific formula or page limit was required. Another problem can arise when the need to do well on a paper is extremely important. Anxiety, she says, can make it harder to get the writing done. Ms. Ahern Dodson says when writing comes easily, the writers believe they have something important to say. She advises asking yourself questions. What insights can you bring to your paper? Why does this subject matter? What is the importance? For whom is it meaningful? Who will be reading it? You can ease writing by placing your attention on what you have to offer. That, says Ms. Ahern Dodson, is an important change for all writers. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. This is the VOA Special English Education Report. America's recession ended in June of 2009, but recovery has been slow. Many states face budget problems and have cut spending in areas including education. In California, thousands of teachers have lost their jobs. 60% of the teachers at the Mariposa Nabi Primary School in Los Angeles have received dismissal notices. Salvador Rodriguez, the school principal, has been able to provide computers for his students. We have to keep going and make it the best year possible with all these changes, he says. But fewer teachers mean bigger classes at his school. Mr. Rodriguez says there used to be 20 students to a teacher. By next year, he expects nearly 30 students in a class. Fewer teachers also mean less individual attention. Teachers say this is true, especially in schools with large immigrant populations, where English is not the first language of many students. Los Angeles has been the nation's second largest public school system after New York City. The district has dismissed 10 to 12% of its staff during the past 2 years. John Deasy, the head of the Los Angeles Unified School District, says about half of those laid off were teachers. An education professor at the University of California, Los Angeles, John Rogers, says other states have also laid off teachers. But he says the situation in California is worse because the state was already facing a budget deficit before the recession. Also, California was spending less per student than the national average. Primary and secondary schools in California receive most of their funding from the state government. A.J. Duffy is president of the United Teachers Los Angeles Union. Mr. Duffy says the amount of funding each year depends on the economy. He says in the past 2.5 to 3 years, we've lost $20 billion in funding for public education. Superintendent John Deasy says the jobs of school librarians and nurses are also being cut. And he expects more changes if the state budget does not improve, like closing or combining schools. Most California school districts have already reduced the number of days per year that students must attend classes. Other states are also talking about shortening the school year to save money. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. For more education news and for English teaching activities, go to voaspecialenglish.com.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. 2 new studies have investigated why fewer females, compared to males, study and work in the so-called STEM subjects in the United States. Those subjects are science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The American Association of University Women examined existing research. Its report, called Why So Few, also suggested ways to interest more girls and women in the STEM fields. The researchers found that cultural and environmental factors make a difference. Researcher Christiane Colbert says more boys than girls score very high on math tests in most countries. She says Iceland and Thailand are exceptions. In those countries, more girls than boys scored above the 99th percentile in math. The other study was carried out by the Campos Company for the Bayer Corporation in the United States. It asked more than 1,000 women and minority members of the American Chemical Society about their experiences. 77% said not enough women and minorities are working in STEM professions today. This is because they were not identified or urged to study those subjects in school. Bayer USA Executive Director Rebecca Lucor says its study produced results similar to the AAUW research. She says the survey showed there is still a lot of work to be done. Rebecca Lucor notes that students say their interest in science begins before the age of 11. So it is important to have science programs for students in elementary school. Why is it so important for girls and women to be involved in science? Christiane Corbett has one answer. She says increasing diversity in professions leads to better products and better science. Expanding and developing this science and engineering workforce is important for the nation's productivity and competitiveness. Rebecca Lucor says scientific professions need more and better workers. She says all citizens should understand science, and she says it is important for everyone in the workforce to be able to think creatively, work in teams, and adapt to change. And that's the VOA Special English Education Report. Is science a popular field of study for girls in your country? You can comment at our website at voaspecialenglish.com. You can also find us on Facebook.